Thank you for joining us on Video 5. This is Napali Coast. We do this every time we come to Kauai. It's such a beautiful coastline. There we were meeting at the offices, getting our brief from the boat captains, and we then proceed to Port Allen, down here where we will get on the boats. Here we are getting on actually two boats at once, and the Kryon channel. Kryon.com/free audio is where you'll find this channel. We head out. Just a little bit rougher than normal. Isn't that a beautiful boat? This is a catamaran. This is one of the two we are on. Everyone has such a great time on the ocean. A bit windy, as you'll see. There's Michael, our photographer from Germany. Hi, Michael. Now we're actually, it took an hour and a half to get there. This is a condensed version. But we are here, and this is just starting to be the most beautiful coast. See, it was wet. Wet and windy. Now there's Monika. She doesn't care. She's getting wet. Everybody else is getting wet too, but you can see how wet it is. Then Monika, of course, she says, "Oh my gosh, look at the wind. Oh no, oh no." And of course the wind was rough, blowing a lot, but oh, look how beautiful this is. It's very, very worth it to be here and to brave the wind and the waves and all of that. I think just one of the most beautiful coasts in Hawaii, and perhaps almost anywhere. And we told you we took a helicopter ride in the last video, and we did it. It's not for the faint at heart if you don't like flying close to the rocks and things, but here we are flying actually through this area that we saw from the boat. So you can see, if there were the boat down there, we were in it, you could see us. Just an absolutely beautiful coast. Here we are again in the air. We are photographing that which we saw from the boats. You just got to do this. When you come to Kauai, you should always take either helicopter or the cruise boats in order to see this correctly. Now, I would love to say that was our boat. It isn't, because we're not on it. We're in the helicopter, but it's just almost just like our boat. This is Mount Waialeale, and the almost wettest spot on Earth. Almost, it's one of the wettest spots. Look at these waterfalls. We were so privileged to be able to actually get down below the clouds. These are areas you don't normally see. Water, water everywhere. Everywhere you look, there was a waterfall. Just gorgeous. Well, this is kind of the end of the day. Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. We sit in a very special place called a hogan. The modern day meets the ancient day, and yet there is a message, something special. In this place you learn how the ancients lived. The indigenous of the valley depended upon the valley. They wanted for nothing except water. The valley fed them, clothed them, kept them warm, kept them cool. And this was a sufficiency. In this modern age today, that sufficiency is not needed like that. And yet what we teach is that the planet continues to supply what you need. The planet and spirit combined together is what we teach. And all of you will go home to something far more modern. And what you learn here is not what you're supposed to do. Or is it? We want to talk about abundance. If you ask the indigenous of the valley 300 years ago, are they abundant? And they would say yes. And they would say that Spirit, the planet, supplies everything they need, and they would be correct. And when you leave this place, can you say the same? There's an ancient story, and we've told it many times, thousands of years ago, where the Israelites walked for 40 years in a circle. They grew nothing, they were on the move constantly, and they covered the same area year after year. And as the scriptures say, they were fed every day from the sky. They had an abundance, and if you ask them if they have an abundance, they would say, yes, for one day. And they were constantly looking at the next day. Dear ones, that's what you do today. Even though you are fed every day, there is an abundance, as defined, truly is what you need from day to day to exist. And even in the Western world, this is the way of it. If you're allied with the planet and with Spirit in a consciousness that is elevated, Spirit will supply for you the abundance you need every single day of your life. And it's beyond just what you eat and what the clothing is. The abundance comes in health. The abundance comes in peace over the things that might give you stress. There is an abundance. There is plenty for all. This is the story of the ancients. Extrapolate it to today. See if it can be something that you would take home to your modern places every day, to wake up and know that there is abundance from day to day. There are certain indigenous that storehouse, and they would storehouse perhaps in the kivas, and they would do it for those places and times where they needed it. There is that tendency in the West. But you don't storehouse when you need it. You storehouse it because you want to storehouse it. And you worry when your storehouse is empty. Dear ones, this is what we want to tell you. The abundance is clear, it's for all, and it's forever. Take what you learn here and see in the most simplest form, and take it home. Finally, I say this. If you could go back 300-400 years, and you could interview the indigenous who live in these beautiful places that they built without nails, you would see that they were happy. You would see that they were in line and in harmony with all that was around them. Yes, they had problems like any other human being. But dear ones, they were happy because they were in alliance with the planet. That is an elevated consciousness. And that is what you're learning to take home with you today. And so it is.
I was wondering if you could speak on what actually happened in the passing of the torch on the 23rd of April, 1984, and then the date, the event later that year on the 𝒂𝒊𝒂 event.
The passing of the torch, and Monika, I'm giving her permission also to chime in because she's the archivist and knows. Do you remember that date?
Not that date. What we have from Kryon is the harmonic convergence, which happened in 1987. I haven't heard Kryon talk about the passing of the torch.
Yeah, that was actually the passing of the torch, I think, is what 87, which was the harmonic convergence. You'll notice that the 87 date is before Kryon came in. So the 87 passing of the torch, which was known as the harmonic convergence, actually was, I would call it a covert decision time, where there was the recognition we're not going to go through this horror at all. And 2 years later, we had the fall of the Soviet Union, which then changed absolutely everything. So it was almost a precursor energy. That I want to talk, that's so good that you asked that, Shane, because now it ties into the channel that was just given in the chair. When Kryon says, if you got somebody knocking at the door and they've got a consciousness, that exists. So it's not a prediction that you don't want to open the door because you can sense the consciousness. So there was a feeling it was coming. Something is coming. And whatever was going on in the Soviet Union at that time is a known quantity and a consciousness, and I think that enough were picking that up, especially harmonic convergence, old souls, and we got a confirmation that something was going to happen. So that was the first thing. Now we've covered as much as that as usually I want to. That is so specifically worldwide predictions of the indigenous that lined it up with the precession of the equinoxes, which is a astrological, astronomical measurement. It is the center of the wobble of the earth. It wobbles for 26,000 years. It's when it stops and then it keeps going and starts again. There's also a half-life of that 26,000 years, it's 13,000, which had predictions on that as well. So it's interesting that the duration of the calendar was 5,125 years. If you multiply that, it'll come up to a 26,000 year. And so there were several calendars that are consciousness calendars that I think corresponded to civilizations that were here. And Greg and I have that discussion as well. That's probably more than you wanted to know. And we explained to people went by without fanfare, except from me, and it changed everything. And the fact that so many indigenous called it long before we had the predictions in Scripture, that I think that is one of the biggest things that's ever happened.